Hey guys, welcome to Envision Prototypes. I'm Nick. Well, here we are, doing the very first walk-around video on this car. Last week you may have seen a preview video, about a minute long, from an overhead shot. Well, I don't have a drone, so I had to be the drone. I felt like a human piñata trying to get that shot. It was crazy. Anyway, beside me here, I've got the very first mid-engine car we built from the ground up almost 20 years ago. That's a long time ago. Design and fabrication started in the mid-90s, and it took us 10 years to build this. And by we, I mean my dad and I. Now, we've done restorations, rust repair, fabrication on cars, stuff like that, but never anything from the ground up. As a 16 or 17-year-old kid, I wanted to build something different, something unique. I sat down with my dad. He likes planes, aircraft. I love hot rods. And we kind of put our heads together, sat down one evening, and did some concept sketches. And things kind of evolved from there. Now, a lot of people don't know, but my dad is a very talented artist, so I asked for his help to come up with the sketches. Now, if you've been watching our YouTube videos, you may have seen this car up on the wall in the shop, or on the header on our channel, or even on our Facebook page. This car actually predates Facebook. Like, Facebook is old, but this car is older. When we actually had photo albums at car shows to show people how we built the thing, we had to actually scan all those pictures into the computer and create an album in Facebook. We've never actually done a walk-around video, and a lot of people were asking to see more of this car. Now, for some, this car is a little bit out there, like 85,000 feet out there. The concept was influenced by the SR-71 Blackbird, Lockheed's SR-71 Blackbird. It's a reconnaissance aircraft. And then we threw in a pinch of mid-60s muscle car elements. After this video, I might just get the nickname Nasty Nick. Who knows? Let's get back to the car. Some people commented it looks a bit like a Mustang, Monte Carlo, the front I guess. I'm not sure where they get the Monte Carlo from. Studebaker, Jaguar. If you see Jaguar in this, put it down in the comments. We'll get to that in a bit. So if you look at the SR-71, you'll see these concave areas. They're made to resemble the sides of the fuselage of the SR-71. And the turbos that the plane has or the aircraft has, well, we kind of mimic that with these back here. So they're not actual turbos. These areas here actually funnel air into the engine's breather. So when we open this up, I'll show you how that works. And in the back, well, we have 57 Ford Fairlane taillights that we retrofitted with LEDs. The 57 Ford taillights had incandescent bulb with two filaments, one for the running lights, one for the brake and signal light. Well, we wanted something a little bit brighter than that. So we took all that out, gutted the housing, and incorporated LEDs, a couple rings of LEDs for the driving light and signal light, brake light. Give it a brighter appearance, and it really looks kick-ass at night. You'll see what I'm talking about. We'll do a walk around and I'll turn the signal lights. Even in the daytime, they're pretty good, pretty visible. LED tail lights back then wasn't a thing. Now you see them everywhere. Now a lot of people at shows, and it really bugs me, because they'll come up to the car and they'll do this. Does that sound like fiberglass to you? You know? If it sounds like fiberglass, put it in the comments. I shouldn't see any comments about fiberglass, because it's not. This whole car was shaped from flat sheet metal panels. And I'm not talking English wheel hand-shaped. I'm talking hammer and dolly hand-shaped. Didn't have an English wheel at the time. These rear quarters, they're comprised of about 12 different pieces, all hammered out to develop the convex shape, welded together, metal finished, smoothed out. I learned a lot about how sheet metal behaves, what it does when you do this or that, you know, the whole thing. This was a huge learning experience for shaping metal. It's one thing shaping up one piece or two pieces, but when you got to build the whole car, it's a whole different animal. Somebody says, oh, I want to build a car. Sit down and think about it carefully and do a lot of research, because it's a lot of work. You'll get into it, and a lot of times they'll end up on a trailer and hauled off to the car heaven, scrap car heaven, because they never make it to the end. If I start something, I finish it. So I just stuck through this, and there was times I'd be sitting there for hours on end hammering, because that's what it took. There is one part on this car that did lend itself from a different vehicle, and that was, if you put it down in the comments, you know already. This hood here. That was the only part. Well, let's go for a little walk around the car. Okay, so we're going to start with the windshield, because that's about the most challenging part of any one-off build. To find glass that works for the design you have. And we did a lot of, like, we refused to use Lexan or plexiglass because if you have wipers that pass over them, it's going to last about 30 seconds. We looked around, and we finally settled on a TR7, Triumph TR7 windshield that we had to make some adjustments to work with the shape. We could trim the corners up and kind of reshape the edges, but the main curvature worked really well. Tempered glass, as if you know about it, if you try cutting that, it's impossible. You can't. It'll just blow up. So we had to use it as is and work that into the cockpit. TR7 had very tall glass, so a lot of the glass is down inside the door. Let's look at the other side. Show what I mean. It's actually closed. You see that? So we actually worked the door into the glass. And the rear window is automotive grade lamy, or laminated glass. 2 sheets with a film in between that we cut and installed. And that was pretty straightforward. But like I mentioned, the front is the most complicated. And if we come down here to the front, whoever put Jaguar was absolutely, or is absolutely correct. To get a more aggressive appearance up front, we took that Jaguar hood. It's a late 70s Jaguar hood that we had laying in the yard here, and we sliced it up. We took and cut it down the length as well as the back edge, because the Jaguar's windshield is a lot more flat. We had to re-offset the center, pulled it forward to give it that more aggressive look, and we added about 12 inches to the back, formed up a piece, and had a contour to the windshield. We incorporated a scoop at the front here with the crosshairs. It's got that kind of fighter jet aircraft kind of theme to it. These concave areas on the side I've been talking about, that's really what the car revolves around, the theme. If you've ever tried to create a reverse curve, they are almost impossible if you don't know what you're doing, because you need to know where to push, where to pull the metal. And at the time, I didn't know. I just worked at it piece after piece until I figured out what did what. And if you guys want to see more about reverse curves, we have a couple videos in our M40C build playlist. So if you check that out, we've done a couple of them on the back of the car. You can see what took me months to figure out in a few minutes. So actually, I'll throw up a card at the top. You can check that out. Now, one thing you'll notice or not notice are any visible fasteners on this car. So let's look at this mirror, for example. They're power mirrors bolted to the body. You don't see any wires either. They're hidden. So what this is a tube, and the wires come up through the door into this tube and up into the mirror. And to get these brackets on here, they actually go into a key slot system, pop on, slide on, and there's a fastener from the front inside the pillar area where you don't see it. And they are extremely solid. Inside the car, we have a very cockpit-inspired interior, brushed stainless dash panel, simple gauges, necessary buttons for headlights, stereo. She is an automatic because we use that Seville transmission. Power windows, mirrors. And on the door panels, again, no visible fasteners anywhere until you say, hey Nick, there's one over there. But when you're actually standing up, you don't see it. And you undo that, and all these panels come off the door in a key lock system. So just by turning one way or the other, unpinning things, they come off. All these badges here, this car doesn't have airbags. So we have a horn button that we created, hand detailed, hand painted, and the sills, we cast those out of resin and mounted them to the sill plates, brushed stainless sill plates. So it's a very simple, clean interior. 80s style GM column, and the pedals resemble the design of these exhaust ports. A little cheesy, but it's fine. And I never get tired of opening and closing these doors. These pieces of trim along the side, they're all hand-shaped aluminum pieces that we milled down, filed, shaped. There should have been a scoop here just to get more air into that engine. We've got one underneath and we've got one at the top, but we should have had one more. And if we come to the back here, we can see the taillights I was talking about. 57 Ford Fairlane taillights. that when we turn on the LEDs, you get a chance to see what they look like. And they're actually spaced out a little bit to create a hole, or a gap I should say, to allow air to come out the back. And with those tail lights, we incorporated some marker lights from a GM Beretta. Mid-60s Mustangs had the sequential tail lights. Well, this one will come on first, and then we'll get bip, 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 bip if you make a left turn there. But your main focal point when you're turning or braking is your brake light there. And these are the four ways over here. I'll show you what they look like at the back. So you can see them flashing there and there. So they look pretty trick, especially at night. Now, if you're looking at the car, how do you get into it? There are no handles. These pieces of trim are bolted to the car. There's no handle there. How do you get into it? If we do this, oh, too slow. We have poppers that allow us to open the doors. So that worked out quite well. Kept the outside smooth. That was the thing back then, poppers on everything. And did you hear how that door closed? Let's do that again. Beautiful, huh? That's the way all of our doors close. No rattles, no bangs. You don't have to slam the door. Now, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. You see somebody slam the door, it's like, take the 5 minutes, make the adjustments, have them closed properly. You also have to have a good structure underneath too, so that's one of the biggest things. All right, now coming back here, we've got a set of vents that you can kind of see an Edelbrock valve cover in there, and some ducting for the engine. So our engine is mid-engine. But how do you get to it? We've got a trunk back here, and there is a release here that we put stuff into. You can see we have the photo album I was talking about. That thing goes back 20 years. It's crazy. But you don't see how to get into the engine. You can also get 2 cases of beer in here. Those are the springs for that rear trunk lid. Now, I used what I had at the time. I was going to school, didn't have the money to buy all the bits and pieces, so I used a lot of stuff that we had on the back shelf in the back 40 here in the yard, and worked all that in. They're all good parts, hood hinges, latches, all that stuff, and we worked all that in to this car. So I'll show you how this back deck opens up. You can see this cut line here, around through here, and then up here. So if I open the door, we've got an electronic release that gives it the first stage of opening. And then we have safety catches back here to allow it to come up the rest of the way. Pretty impressive, eh? It's on dampers, so it has a cushioned effect when it comes down. It doesn't just slam down. See that? And there we have a small block Chevy 350 engine. It's been hot rodded. It's got a hot cam in it, and you might be looking at it and say, hey, the pulleys are over there, and the front of the car is over there. That's right. This Chevy's mated to a Caddy Seville transmission, and we joined the two together using a Johnny Cash adapter plate right there, so that we could get all the weight transferred forward. Otherwise, you'd be doing wheelies all day long. Wouldn't be a good thing. Now, you might be putting it down in the comments, there's one thing wrong with your setup, Nick. What are you doing? Let's go over here. With things situated this way, for those that don't know, you're going to have 3 reverse gears with overdrive or plus overdrive, and 1 forward gear. It's facing the wrong way. With the transmission over here, it's wrong. So what we have to do, take that differential right there, get in on it, it's kind of dark, and flip that baby upside down, 180 degrees. And that gave us back our 3 forward gears plus overdrive and 1 reverse gear, which is good. I'm not too keen on going down the highway backwards. So that took care of that issue. While I'm at it, it also dropped this whole power plant down about 1.5 inches inside the chassis, which is perfect, low center of gravity. By flipping that differential upside down, we had to punch a hole through the oil pan. And last time I checked, you needed oil for an engine to run properly. It'll run for a little bit, but then, well, yeah. So we created an adapter plate here. Here's a, where is it? Right there. Come on, focus. There's a 3/8 adapter plate there and a 1/4 inch adapter plate, and that gave us the right spacing to pass the axle through the oil pan between the journals. So we took and sleeved the oil pan, which helped us keep the oil within the oil pan, and gave us the center of mass towards the front of the car and our gearing the right way around with 3 forward gears and 1 reverse gear. So that all worked out, but it took an incredible amount of time to get all that right, figure it out. And it's pretty cool because it's old school thing, old school technology, but it all works out. And that tranny's good to about 400 horsepower with that chain drive. There's a chain inside that cover right there. And if you can just see it, there's our tube chassis right there. So what we have is the coolant for this engine. The rads are up front. So the coolant flows down one side of the car within the tube frame and then up the other side on this tube here. You can see it actually sticks out right there. Goes up to your filler neck there. Made up our own headers, come down, dump underneath, and the muffler sits underneath that trunk there. And there's our air breather system, dual air intake, fed by the turbos. One side has a fan, a little squirrel cage fan, and the other side is just direct ram air. You can see the circuitry for the tail lights. There's a piece of plexiglass, the only piece of plexiglass used on this car, to cover up the circuitry. Hey, let's fire this thing up and let's see how it sounds. I'm having trouble with this dead cat. I've lost one somewhere and this one keeps falling off. So hopefully the sound comes out good. We can get this video done. You see the fuel filler is here. One of the biggest things is, where do you put the fuel filler? On the outside, there's no real good place for it. The fuel tank actually sits between the seats down the center of the car and goes all the way up to the front there. Safe place and gives us lots of capacity. So the fuel filler ended up right there, and when you close this back deck, it's safe. Nobody's going to be tampering with it. And I'll show you what it sounds like when it closes. Comes down, see, it's cushioned, and then you just latch it shut. Like I mentioned, there's 2 catches on each side along with safety catches, so that, heaven forbid, this thing ever opened up, well, you wouldn't be going down the highway like this. So, okay, let's bring R2 into the picture. I love the way that closes. All right guys, so here we are, the second iteration, Rhythm 2.0, or R2 for short. Now, about the time that I was finishing that one up, I started to get the itch. And if you've ever had the itch, you know the itch I'm talking about. And if you've never had the itch, well, it's a special kind of itch. I get really critical about my work. And if, let's say for instance, I do a drawing and I'll finish it, I'll fall in love with it, I'll put it on the wall. The next day I'll look at it and I'll see something that I don't quite like about it, or just something can be changed about it, or I just feel like changing it. And it'll bug me until I sit down and redraw it, until I'm happy with it. I looked at this one and said, let's chop off 38 inches. Shorten up the front, shorten up the back. As you can see, this is a heck of a lot shorter. And as I was going through the design, I looked at ways of saving weight. You may have noticed the McPherson struts in the back. I took care of all that back here. No more McPherson struts. There's a lot of redundant weight. And just went through the whole car and redesigned it, fresh sheet of paper design. We still have the concave surfaces in the turbos and the main cockpit design, but everything's been pushed around, pulled around, until we have a more tailored, more refined, more modern look. So for the power plant, we went out and picked up a C5 LS6 Corvette, stripped it down, pulled the engine out, suspension components, electrical system, seats, stuff like that, and incorporated that into this vehicle. We didn't use the monoleafs in the front and the back, we put coilovers. So that involved a whole new chassis design, mounted the engine in the back, put the coilovers on the 4 corners, and doing all that reduced the entire weight of this car. So this baby really flies. It's scary fast. I've never taken it up to its limit. I don't want to. I'm not that great of a driver. The owner of this car is, and he tracks his car regularly. And this thing runs cool as a cucumber. Those side scoops I was talking about on that one down below, we've got it all here. We've got venting everywhere. And this engine, it really performs. It has never overheated, touch wood. Now after that one was done, it took about a year to get all the drawings and everything completed for this one, and I started building this one for myself. Then things got a bit crazy at the shop, so I went into storage for 4 years where it just sat. It was covered up and just sat in the corner. Until a friend of mine said, if you finish that one up, I'll take that over, I'll take this R2 over, you finish it up for me, and I'll let you borrow it from time to time. And this is one of those times, so we can actually take it out. It's end of summer, kind of enjoy it for a couple weeks. Meanwhile, we're doing a bit of maintenance on it, detail it, and that's the other thing. These cars are not trailer queens, they're driven, and this one's driven hard. You'll see road rash on the front of that one, on the front of this one. These cars get the miles on. It's not like you build something and you just put it in your garage and look at it. We love to drive them. The 51 Ford, I haven't seen that car for quite a while. My dad's been in it, enjoying it so much. He took it to a few shows, he's visiting friends across different areas. He loves the car. Now when it comes to the doors, those doors are a little bit small, especially for these size 12s to get in and out of. I'm 6'2", and it's not too elegant watching me get in and out of the car. But once you're in, you're comfortable. With this one, we increased the size of the doors. We took and moved this A-pillar forward, gave it a rake to the front, increase the opening to the footwell. So that one comes straight down, this one comes forward. And the other thing we did, those doors open conventional style, just 2 hinges and a pivot and they swing out. These doors open a butterfly style. So there is a single pivot arm at the front, and within that pivot arm, the wires come up through for the power windows, power mirrors. So it's nice and clean, you don't see additional grommets, cables, anything hanging out. And it really allows us to get in and out a little easier than that one there. And they close really well as well with one single pivot. Sometimes you might see cars with a hinge up here, kind of exposed. We wanted a nice smooth look, so the hinges are hidden inside. And the latches are 3D printed, so we've incorporated them into the back of the door to release the latch. Works out quite well. All right, let's have a closer look at R2. Starting at the front here, we didn't use a Jaguar hood this time. This time we shaped up every single piece from scratch. We did reuse the TR7 windshield, reshaped it a little bit differently than the first one, and again the side glass. Those are C5 Corvette mirrors. They worked out quite well in the car. Gives you great visibility. This front fascia splits along this line here, the black and the blue. They split apart in that area. And we have 3D printed bezels for the fog lights, LEDs for the signals, driving lights. The rad is at the front with a much larger opening. Here we wanted this car to breathe. With the LS6, you got to get a lot of air through that. We've got the vent at the top as well as the bottom. And we have these scoops up here to allow the air to come out as well as down here. So just tons of ventilation. Chevy SSR tail lights, reversing lights, exhaust. And if I can open the hatch, I'll show you the engine. Just pop that. Interior wise, like I mentioned, the car has to be detailed. She just came in a little bit dirty, but we actually have a few videos on this dash rebuild, and you guys can check that out. It came out pretty cool with a two-tone interior. Sill plates that was inset into the sill itself. So let's pop the rear hatch. Go. And here we have the engine compartment with a cover we made up to kind of clean things up. You have a power steering reservoir there, it's accessible, alternator. This engine sits the right way in this car, not backwards like the other one. Just called it metallic, not to be confused with metallic. It means butterfly. And we have our dipstick there, Porsche G50. Now I mentioned we adapted this engine and transmission together with an adapter plate. I think it was Kennedy Engineering that helped us out with that. And then we had custom drive axles made up to work with the Corvette hubs. So that worked out pretty sweet. And the other thing we had to do was one major modification was flip this transaxle upside down. And believe it or not, this was actually meant to run inverted. Porsche flipped it around so that when they had it at the front there, ahead of the engine, it would run the right way. Remember I was talking about flipping the diff? We want to take her out with you guys, show you what she does, and then we're going to go ahead and detail it and return it. That's it. One little trick piece is we have license plate lights, and to conceal them, because this is a very shallow depth panel, created this 3D printed bezel, and at night you have the light from the taillights shining through the word Envision. Okay, and the color. I want to talk about the color because this is a very unique color. Again, custom mixed by us here. And the flop, it actually flops from a silvery blue in the bright sunlight to a deep, almost charcoal purplish color in the shade. And the way we came up with this, the owner insisted do something that represents bare metal after it's been tempered. I'll throw up a picture of a tempered piece of metal and you can see the color gradient within that picture. And that's what we try to accomplish with this paint. So it'll flop from like that bright silvery blue to a really deep purplish hue, depending on the light. It has the black accents around the doors and then carrying back into the sail panels. Fuel filler, I've shown you a little secret. There's 2 saddle tanks, one on each side with a connecting tube. What do you say we take these 2 cars out for a drive? That one first, because I'm kind of scared of this one. She's fast. Alright guys, so this is your captain speaking, and we're cruising at about 15,000 feet. Not really, down the highway. This is a really comfortable, easy-going car. It's got the automatic shifter, which is okay. I think at the time I was driving truck and there was a lot of shifting, so I just wanted something that was, you get in and you just drive. See how well that corner, the center of gravity so low, it just really sticks to the road. And she's smooth. I built this with the intention of creating something very unique, and it sure is. Gets a lot of attention. A lot of guys have been asking to see this car. You've seen it at the shows and whatever, but just on YouTube, a lot of questions about it. And hopefully this answers them. It's a unique build. I learned a lot from it. And has a lot of great memories. And that's what it's really about, building memories. When I was accelerating back there, you didn't really feel any shifting. It's really smooth. Now I can shift if I wanted to. And she does move. But just a fun driving, cruising car. If you're stressed out, whatever, you just jump in this thing, go, and the stress just melts away. When you're looking out over the hood, all I really see is that front scoop. I don't see the nose when it dives down. It's a bit of a different experience when you're driving it. And being that it sticks out so far, you have to know the length of the car so you don't bump into anything. You can see how well that back latch or the back deck latches. There's no chattering, it doesn't vibrate, not bouncing up and down. It's locked in, solid. Let's go. We saw him earlier. It's probably wondering, I just saw that guy. Temperature-wise, the engine is comfortable. It's, what was it, 175? We haven't really gone very far, but usually runs 190, 195 on a kind of 20-degree day, 23-degree day. You get a little hotter, 210, 205. It's not too bad. And it's really tough to do 11s with this car. You gotta have all that weight over the rear end, and it connects, you know? It really connects. It's smooth. Alright guys, so we've got R2 on the road. It's a little bit of a different driving experience than the first one, a lot less laid back. It's, let's just say, more engaging. You can have a lot of fun with it, and it can have a lot of fun with you too, so you have to respect it. The car, I think, comes in at 2,800 pounds, 28 something. We really succeeded in trimming off a lot of the weight off the Burgundy one. I'm looking for one more gear. It's a 5-speed. We could have shaved a bit more off of this one. We did put sound deadening in and all that stuff, but you know, you want to be semi-comfortable when you're cruising too. From what I understand, well, we used 1/4-inch glass for the back window, but from what I understand, the new C8 Corvette, their glass is 1 inch thick to kind of conceal the sound of that engine. I don't mind it. I don't mind it. I was hoping to get through this intersection without slowing down, because this thing really corners well. The weight distribution is perfect. I gotta behave myself here. You don't feel the speed in this car. She just goes. Sure, you see stuff flying by you, but I'm sure if I drove it more, you'd get more used to it. I get it last few weeks of summer. Get to borrow it, we go over the car, clean everything, detail it, change the oil, all that stuff. These cars are built as drivers. You see the road rash in the front, I mentioned that before. We don't, trailer queens, store them in the garage, sit back and admire them. This is what I like to admire right here. It's an internally gated shifter on the Porsche G50, so we didn't have to do any funny business here inside the cabin, and we're using a rod style shifting system. It gives you a very direct feel between what's happening back there and stick here. A lot of guys find setting up a cable is a lot easier. I guess to each his own. It's one of the best natural highs is to be, no matter what you build, be it this or a hot rod, rat rod, whatever, to build something and then get out there and enjoy it. It takes a lot of work too, a long time. I was thinking of doing the 3rd revision, R3, but I don't know. From start to finish, this took 10 years, but it was in 4 years in storage, so 6 years. A very predictable shift pattern, so you're not looking for your gears, they're right there. train here. The acceleration, the G's. The only thing I can compare it to is a roller coaster. I know my limits as a driver, and I don't push it past that. The owner, however, is giving me one heck of a ride. And the beauty of using a complete Corvette powertrain package, except for the transmission, the OBD2 port, you plug it in, you have any trouble. He had some issues with an oxygen sensor and stopped by a garage, boom, took care of him, and he was well on his way again. So, unlike the first one where if you run it, well, it's only one wire to feed the distributor. Very old school, very simple. You can kind of fix yourself on the side of the road. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little video on these two mid-engine vehicles we created. Like I said, this is the first time we have ever done anything in terms of a walk around on the first one. The second one, we did do some shakedown videos in the beginning, stuff like that, but never a complete walk around description of what we did. The dash update, I think it was the last time we did something. I hope you had a good time, Joe. Hit like, subscribe, and that bell up there, hit that. Helps our channel grow. Get more videos out to you guys. Believe it or not, it's a lot of work to edit. Well, build the cars and edit a Google car. Guess what? We're going to be on Google somewhere. Google Map. Yahoo! So somebody's itching to pass. You gotta have eyes in the back of your head when you're driving around in a custom car. People's eyes are right on the car all the time, so they kind of forget about their surroundings. Got a couple new projects coming up in the near future. We had to get our hammers and dollies in a row first, and these new videos will be coming out soon. Take care.